Have you ever felt like a painting was watching you back? Not just looking, actually watching, waiting, breathing behind the paint. In the small town of Willow Creek, there's a gallery most people avoid after dark. And inside it hangs a portrait that locals refuse to talk about. They call her the Lady in Blue, and every single full moon, something happens to that painting that no one can explain. This is the story of the night someone finally found out why. The gallery in Willow Creek had stood for over 100 years, tucked between a shuttered bookstore and an old clock repair shop. Most of its paintings were unremarkable, landscapes, still life, forgotten portraits of forgotten people. But one painting was different. The Lady in Blue, painted by a reclusive artist named Edward Mortimer more than a century ago. The portrait showed a young woman in a flowing blue gown, her expression caught somewhere between sorrow and warning. Miss Thompson, the town's oldest historian, had worked at the gallery for 30 years. She always warned new employees the same way: don't stay past midnight when the moon is full. And whatever you do, don't look directly into her eyes. No one had ever asked her why, until Claire did. Claire was a 22-year-old art student who didn't believe in ghost stories. She believed in brushstrokes, pigment, and the science of light. So when she heard the legend of the Lady in Blue, she laughed it off, until she saw the painting herself, and felt something she'd never felt looking at canvas before. The eyes followed her. That was 3 weeks before the next full moon, and Claire couldn't stop thinking about it. On the night of the full moon, a storm rolled into Willow Creek. Rain hammered the gallery's old windows, and the power flickered twice before finally holding. Claire had convinced the night guard to let her in, telling him she was doing research for a thesis on Mortimer's technique. It wasn't entirely a lie. She stepped into the gallery alone, flashlight in hand, her footsteps echoing against 100 years of silence. The Lady in Blue hung at the far end of the main hall, illuminated only by flashes of lightning through the skylight above. "I've heard the stories," Claire whispered to the empty room. "But paint doesn't move, paint doesn't change." She was wrong. At exactly midnight, moonlight broke through the clouds and struck the canvas directly. And the portrait began to shimmer, not like a trick of light, but like something underneath the paint was pushing to get out. The lady's expression shifted. Her painted smile curled at the edges, and her eyes, once flat and lifeless, suddenly held something unmistakably alive. Claire stumbled back, her flashlight shaking in her hand. This wasn't restoration damage. This wasn't a reflection. The woman in the painting was looking directly at her, and her lips were moving, though no sound came out. That's when Claire noticed something she'd missed 100 times before: a hairline seam along the bottom edge of the ornate wooden frame. A seam that didn't belong on a 100-year-old antique. Her hands trembling, she pressed against it. A small hidden compartment clicked open. Inside was a folded, yellowed letter, sealed with wax that had never been broken. Claire's fingers shook as she unfolded the letter. The ink was faded but legible, written in a tight, obsessive hand. The letter was Edward Mortimer's confession. He wrote that he had fallen in love with a woman named Eleanor, a woman who did not love him back. Desperate to keep her forever, refusing to accept her rejection, Mortimer had turned to something he'd learned from an old occult text passed down through his family, a ritual that could bind a living soul to a painted image. He painted Eleanor in her favorite blue gown, and on the night of a full moon, he performed the binding. It worked. Eleanor's body was found the next morning, lifeless in her bed, with no wound and no explanation. But her spirit never moved on. Mortimer had trapped her inside the canvas, and in doing so, cursed her to a hunger that grew with each passing year. The letter explained the price. Every full moon, the trapped spirit would search for a new host. A person who looked too long into her eyes, who felt drawn to her sorrow, who lingered past midnight. If that person didn't break the connection in time, the spirit would slip free of the canvas, and into them. Mortimer's final words were scrawled hastily, as though written in a panic. I have doomed her, and I fear now that I have doomed whoever finds this next. There is only one way to end it, but I lack the courage to try. God help the next soul who reads these words. Claire looked up from the letter. The painting was no longer shimmering. It was fully alive now, and Eleanor's eyes were locked directly onto hers. The gallery lights began to flicker violently. A cold wind swept through the hall, though every window was shut. Claire's flashlight died completely, leaving only the moonlight and the pale glow radiating from the portrait itself. Eleanor's painted lips finally parted, and a voice, faint, layered, almost overlapping itself like an echo, filled the room. Free me, it whispered. Please. 100 years. Free me. Claire's mind raced. The letter had mentioned only one way to end the curse, but Mortimer never wrote down what it was. He'd lost his nerve before finishing. All Claire had were fragments, a binding ritual, a full moon, a willing host. If she touched the painting now, would she free Eleanor's spirit, or would Eleanor simply take her body instead, the way she'd been trying to take a new host for 100 years? Claire had a choice to make in seconds, not minutes. Walk away and leave Eleanor trapped forever, letting the legend continue to prey on whoever wandered into this gallery next. Or take the risk the letter warned about, and try to end the curse once and for all, even if it cost her everything. She thought about all the names Miss Thompson had mentioned over the years, visitors who came to see the painting and were never quite the same afterward, employees who quit without explanation. She thought about the seam in the frame, hidden for 100 years, waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to open it. Claire stepped forward and placed her palm flat against the canvas. The moment her skin touched the paint, the temperature in the room dropped violently. Claire felt a pulling sensation, like something was reaching through her hand and into her chest. She gritted her teeth and spoke the only words Mortimer had left behind in the letter, a fragment of the original ritual, reversed. I release you, return to what you were. Leave this place, and leave me. A blinding white light exploded from the canvas, throwing Claire backward onto the gallery floor. When she opened her eyes, the room was silent. The storm outside had stopped. And when she looked up at the frame, the canvas was empty. No brushstrokes, no figure. Just blank, aged fabric where the lady in blue had been for over a century. Claire never spoke publicly about what happened that night. She quietly returned the letter to the gallery archive and left Willow Creek not long after, finishing her degree somewhere far away. To this day, Miss Thompson still gives the same warning to new employees, though now, she adds one more line. She tells them that the frame is empty, that the legend is over. But she also tells them to watch the frame closely, especially during a full moon. Because a few months ago, staff swore they saw something faint beginning to take shape on the blank canvas again. If you ever find yourself in an old gallery, standing in front of a painting that feels like it's watching you back, walk away. Some frames are empty for a reason. And some things, once freed, are already looking for somewhere new to hide. If this story kept you up at night, subscribe for more, because next time, we go inside the house that remembers everything that's ever happened inside it.